Good afternoon, everyone. As you might have heard, my name is Evan Stalker, and I'm here to talk about controlling yourself. So I'd like to open everything with a question. Just think for a second. When's the last time that you got angry or frustrated or just a little bit ticked off because maybe your football team didn't win or something silly like that? Now, raise your hand if it was in the past month. Basically everyone. And how about last week? Still a lot of people. How about just today, even? Still about half the room. That's absolutely insane. Almost half of the people here have experienced anger just today, showing that we are facing this daily issue of our negative emotions. Now, anger usually shows up because we're expecting something out of somebody else. Like on the road, we're expecting that person in front of us to allow us to pass them. Or we're expecting people at work to do their part. And sometimes anger just shows up in places that you don't expect it, where it shouldn't be. Like when you're doing your hobbies, or when you're playing a game. Like just today, I was playing my favorite game, Brawlhalla, and I got very frustrated. Now, this is an issue because anger is getting into what we expect to be peaceful, what we try to do to unwind after a long day, but we just can't. The anger that we face every day is getting extreme, and it's becoming an issue for the world. Being able to manage your anger and express yourself properly is a giant step in order to improve the world. Now, to start with how large the actual issue is, a world poll by Gallup showed that 55% of people in the United States admitted to being stressed regularly. Now, to put that into reference, 35% was the global average, and the United States ranked in the top 5 most stressed countries. And continuing with this trend, since 1997, when people claim to be content, around 29% of people claim to be content, and 12% claim to be angry, it switched completely to around 17% claim to be content and 24% claim to be angry. So what is causing this issue? And I know that everyone here has probably heard the whole spiel about social media being an issue, and it's true. So I'm just going to touch on that by saying that if social media is overwhelming people with everybody else's achievements, where if you look on social media for even a second, you see hundreds of people getting promotions, raises, new cars, even just being with friends, and you think that your own achievements aren't enough, and you discredit yourself, which is not fair to do. So just looking at yourself, focusing on yourself, understanding that what you're doing is relevant is a major step into becoming happier with yourself and managing yourself. But anger not only affects your actual feelings, but it also affects how you work. There's a study done that showed that workplaces usually have around 16 to 30% of the time where people feel angry in some way. And when productivity is looked at, as expected, the lower ends had more productivity and the higher ends of anger had less productivity. So the anger that we feel sends us into this spiral where we just feel awful. We do poorly at work. We don't get that raise. We don't get that promotion. So we feel even worse. And this cycle just continues. So we need to find a way that we can actually save ourselves and actually express our anger properly to prevent this. But just looking generally, is anger actually bad for us? Based on everything that we've talked about so far, absolutely. However, it's a natural feeling. Anger is something that we are meant to experience. The issue comes about when it comes to how we express it, where there's basically a scale where people either don't say anything or they get violent and scream. And where you want to be is the middle, because if you don't say anything, the issue will never get resolved. And if you scream, it might get resolved, not effectively, and you might hurt your relations with other people. But if you're in the middle and you can calmly express how you feel and what you think should be, how you feel things should be going, you can actually make a change. Now, the main time that I need to deal with anger is with my father, who on long car rides, he'll get cranky and he'll just end up becoming impossible to even talk with. But we know how to deal with him because we've lived with him. We know who he is, which is the first way in managing anger, which is knowing the person. If you know the person, it's the easiest way to deal with anger because you know exactly how to approach it, how they're feeling, and how you can help them. But you're not always dealing with anger with people that you know. Sometimes it's complete strangers. And that's where you need more general strategies, such as just communication. Some of the time, people feel that when you have awful feelings about something, it can feel like sometimes it's just such an insignificant thing to get angry about, like someone tapping their foot loudly. But if it's really upsetting you, you must communicate it. Not communicating it, as I said, it'll never get resolved. So you just end up getting into this cycle of not getting anything done. And this can be brought up into larger scale things where if you don't say anything, you'll just feel worse, and it'll just build to the point where you end up at the violent screaming stage. And it's ridiculous how anger can affect people, how you just end up into this completely different person. And it's unfair for some people how they end up doing what they do and getting awful changes with who they know and how they react to that and how they interact with them, just because they got angry once, which is where we need to use another strategy, which is something that many people learned when they were toddlers, with counting to 10. Because although it sounds ridiculous, counting to 10 disengages you. It allows you to think about what's happening. It stops you from acting sporadically. And it allows you to just take a step back from the situation, understand what's making you angry, understand how you should approach it, and then approach it and communicate with the person and do everything well. Now, anger management, like many things, is a skill. It takes practice. The first time that you go up to somebody to tell them how you feel, it might feel uncomfortable. Other times, just counting to 10 in public will feel weird and just childish. But by working on these skills, we can better the world and better how we act with each other. Thank you.